Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal Show, brought to you by ebodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards. Hey folks, Jay with The Real Deal Show, back at you again with some stories from back in the day.
From the past.
Yeah, so we kind of are making this into a series. It's discussions about our old surf trips from back in the day. We mentioned in the last show how enriching and educational and just eye-opening surf travel is.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope you guys don't get bored by it, but we have some awesome stories and just thought it would be fun to, go back in the day and tell you how it used to be and our travels and bodyboarding experiences back then. So moving on. So the first episode that we covered the surf trips, we talked about the Euro trip and our first trip to Indonesia. So moving on, this is not in any specific chronological order, but our first trip to Fiji. Because as we record this, we're about 4 days away from departing for Fiji. I don't know, this is going to be our seventh time to Fiji, maybe. I believe. Mm-hmm. Seventh time. We obviously love that country. But our first trip there, we didn't know what to expect. This is going back somewhere around the early 90s, 94 maybe, somewhere in there. And we had a friend who you grew up with named Todd DeGraff. What do you know? What can you tell me about Toddy? Yeah, he was one of the best bodyboarders to come out of Australia back then. Young kid, blonde, just funny little trickster.
Hey,
sorry.
Family show. I gotta do edits.
His mom was from Fiji, so he had connections over there. I think he initiated the trip and was like, let's go to Fiji. And some of the Port Macquarie friends of Todd's was my brother, Peter, and Damien King. So we kind of said, yeah, let's do a trip, get some photographer to go. Who was our photographer? Oh, also
Paul Dawson.
Yeah. So Toddy got his mom to hook up some connections there. Is that how we got to Kadavu? Was it because of...
I will say this initially. I remember fine details from the past.
Yeah, you do. Go
Vicky's
for it.
Very good short-term memory.
Yeah, I want to get you the story done.
I'm
the details
long-term
are good.
Memory. The details are why we're here.
Jay?
Yeah, so you're right. Todd DeGraff organized this trip, and he's from Port Macquarie. Your brother, also from Port Macquarie, Paul Dawson, the photographer from Port, and you and I were living in California at the time. And we said, heck yeah, we'll meet you guys in Fiji. So the plan when we got to Fiji was they were going to spend a couple days in Suva, which is where Todd's family was from, his mother's family, down in Suva on the south coast of Viti Levu, the main island. So, and then once we arrived, we would get a day down there in Suva, and then we would hop on a freighter over to Kadavu Island. Just a bizarre plan. We didn't know what the heck. We were basically leaving it in Todd's hands to set the whole thing up. So long story long, because this is a long format. Vicki and I flew in. We get there early in the morning into Nadi. Now, Nadi is sort of the main city on Viti Levu. It's the capital of, it's not the capital of Fiji. Suva is, but Nadi is where the large international airport is.
We didn't get in the morning.
No, we did. We got there at 5:30 in the morning from LA.
We drove to Suva in the night.
No, it was still dark, so we might have gotten in a little early. But so we had to basically walk out and find someone to take us down to Suva, which is a 2.5-3 hour ride in a car easily. So we found this dude and we negotiated a price, and he puts us in his van with our board bags, all our gear, and it's dark out because it's still very early in the morning. And we start motoring towards Suva. What do you remember next?
Yeah, that's why I thought it was at night, because it was dark, so it must have been early morning. But we're trucking along with this guy, and then he pulls off into this onto this road and like meets up with some of his buddies or something, and of course we're exhausted and don't know this guy, and we're like, hope he's taking us to Suva. We have no idea where we are. Was it on the side of a road or an alleyway?
No, he pulled into this residential area like halfway to Suva.
Yeah.
And we're like, what is this guy doing? And it seems to me like they switched drivers.
Is that what it
was? Like he hopped out, he was talking to a bunch of dudes. I had my Swiss Army knife in my pocket that I carried everywhere. That I had my hand. I was ready to like pull out a knife. Was I going to stab somebody?
And we know Fijians. You know, we've heard.
Well, we didn't at that point.
Yeah.
We didn't really know anything about it. You know, there was no internet to research.
Right.
And how warm and friendly the Fijians are. You know, we had no idea.
Now we know, but you know, third world country we've never been to, and.
Not even a third world. No, Fiji is not really. English colonial.
But not the
influence.
Richest, you know, of...
I get what you're saying.
You know,
so anyway, they switched drivers, and the guy continued on to Suva, and by then it was daylight, and we arrived in Suva, and our crew, some of them were out surfing or out on a boat exploring this little island right off where this hotel was that we were staying. And we ended up surfing right next to Pacific Harbor there. There's this little right-hander right next to the harbor.
Fun, yeah.
Real fun little right, nothing threatening, just like shoulder, maybe head-high waves. And we surfed that all day, and then the plan was after the first day, we were, as I mentioned, going to catch this freighter. So I remember we had to go to this little office like in downtown Suva and buy these tickets to get on this freighter. I have no idea how much it was. Couldn't have been much because literally we were just paying to be on it. No cabin or anything.
No, on the deck.
On the deck. It was
steel,
it was an overnight boat trip to Kadavu. And now Kadavu had zero facilities for visitors.
Yeah, I don't even think we knew where we were staying.
We didn't know anything about it. All we knew is Todd DeGraff had said there's this good wave. Gary Elkerton, the pro surfer, had been there and surfed this spot. Kong's Left, they called it, I think.
Yeah, mate, we'll be right. We'll just get on this boat.
Good.
We'll go over.
Yeah,
we'll get off and we'll surf.
No problem. So we're thinking, okay, he's got us a place to stay, and you know, whatever. There's restaurants, I guess. We don't know. So we hop on this freighter, and we literally slept. It was a steel deck, and we slept on benches on the deck.
On our boards, maybe.
Maybe on our boards, and you know, got there in the morning. And we pulled up near this village, and they brought these tenders out, which are a tender, if you know anything about maritime stuff, is like a little boat that will take you from the big boat to the shore. Cruise ships use tenders to take you to and from the shore. So these little skiffs came out, and we took all our stuff and threw it on these skiffs. I guess Todd had talked to the captain of our freighter and said, hey, we want to go stay in this village because this is where the waves are. And so the skiff takes all our stuff off the freighter and motors us to the beach and drops us off. And we're on this beach. There's nothing. It's a jungle, sand, rocks, nothing. We could see a few structures up the hill that I guess were people's houses, we thought at that point. But we were just like there on the beach with all our stuff and no place to stay. Yes. Yeah, it's like the middle of the early, like 10 in the morning in Fiji, and we're just no idea. So Todd says, I'm going to go to the village and sort it all out. So we're like, oh, great. Okay. Well,
how old was Todd?
You haven't sorted it out in advance? Oh, he was like 18 maybe, still young. So he comes back like, I don't know how long, half an hour, 45 minutes later, and he goes, okay, we got to go up to the village. These people said we could stay at their house.
Yeah, they're going to move out and let us
They're going to stay in their back house, and we stay in their house. So we're tripping out. We're thinking, are you kidding me? We came all the way here. We had nothing planned, nothing sorted out. But, geez, these people are just going to move out of their house and let us live in their house? What the heck, man? That's just over the top. So we get there, we move into these people's house, and they're so nice to us. They're sleeping in this back house, like behind their house, and they cooked meals for us every day and every night.
And now this day we know that's just what the Fijians do.
That's what they do.
Welcoming.
Just open their home to us. We didn't even know any of us.
You didn't need your pocket knife.
And, I think Todd spoke a little Fijian because his mom's Fijian.
Huh.
But one of the things in Fiji is, there's still sort of a tribal culture there in a good way, in that, to do it right, you want to go there, you want to ask permission to do anything that you're going to do there. And in this case, the chief of the village, you want to be courteous, and you want to go to a meeting with the chief and the village elders or whatever, the important people. You want to request permission to, like, can we stay in, is it okay if we stay in your village and we surf the waves out here? And you have a kava ceremony.
Yeah, they invited us to the kava ceremony
because that's part of the thing. You want to go, you want to share a cup of kava with them, and you want to, just be respectful through the ceremony and hope they give you permission to hang out in their village.
So you can imagine we're tripping out, like we're in this island, in this village, meeting the chief and these families and drinking this muddy water with us.
Yeah, kava. It was kava. Just so you know how they prepare it, they get this root. I can't remember the name of the root. I wish I could. It's not even on the tip of my tongue. But basically, they take this root
Isn't it called kava root?
Nah, the root itself is called something different. I think. Please correct me. Post a comment below on YouTube if you can fill us in if I'm wrong here, but
we'll Google it.
In any case, they make a drink called kava out of it, and what it is, they have this big wooden bowl full of water, and they mash the root of this thing into this water, and it forms this liquid that basically looks like muddy river water, and it has a little bit of tingle to it when you drink it.
Earthy tingle.
Makes your tongue and your lip tingle. Some say that it gives you a little buzz. I didn't notice that at all when I've
drink like
had
10
kava.
cups of it to get that.
Yeah, I've had 10 cups in a row, but it affects everyone differently, I think. But in any case, so we had the kava, and they gave us permission, but they said you can't surf on Sunday. Sunday's a holy day. There'll be no surfing on Sunday. So we were there for a week, and we absolutely scored. One of the local fishermen would take us out on the boat to the spot. We'd surf it, and sometimes we'd paddle back. Sometimes he would come back. We'd say, come back in 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. Sometimes maybe they anchored there because your brother was shooting photos, as was Paul Dawson, and they had to reload their film. There was no digital cameras.
That's right.
So in any case, maybe we had a boat out there. The guy hung out,
yeah.
and we said, we'll pay you to just hang out the whole time. So we scored waves, nothing big, but just super fun, draining waves. We were the only ones there. There's because no one went there back then. It was off the map. Now I think there's actually a surf resort there.
Really?
Yeah. But back then there wasn't. So yeah, it was us and us alone on that trip. And then I'll never forget, like, the best day of the trip was the Sunday.
Of course.
It was sunny and gorgeous, and we just were looking out at the reef, which was like a quarter mile offshore, and we just kept seeing spit, and we were so bummed because we couldn't surf, but that was part of the deal, out of respect for the locals.
I'm surprised Kingy didn't paddle out.
That brings up the next thing. So it came time for us to go back to Viti Levu, the main island, and we didn't want to take that freighter again. So we booked air tickets.
Little hopper plane.
Yeah,
right?
little puddle jumper plane.
Z-plane was at that trip.
Yep. So we went to this dirt airstrip on the island. I think it took us an hour in a van to get there. We somehow got a van to take us, and we
flew back. Yeah.
We flew back, and we stayed at this sort of like a backpacker's place. It's called Seashell Cove Resort. And it was anything but a resort. It was like a backpacker's place,
Is that
But
in Denarau?
No, it was on the Coral Coast, which is like near Hideaway, where we stayed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
in that general vicinity. So it was on the west coast of Viti Levu, and it was cool. It was like an international crowd of backpacker type folks hanging out there, and there was a lot of European young people there, and it was like a party atmosphere. But they did have a boat every morning out to you could go out to Namotu and some of those surrounding spots, but not Cloudbreak, because at that point, you had to stay in Tavarua to surf Cloudbreak in restaurants. You couldn't surf it. So before I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Before when we first got there, Damian King, wanted to surf Cloudbreak.
And it
desperately.
was pumping. Remember,
yeah, there's a big swell.
Like pumping so big that there wasn't anyone out at Cloudbreak.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a sec. But Kingy's calling Tavarua's office in Nadi, and he's like, "Hi, we're he in Fiji, and we really want to surf Cloudbreak. We're willing to pay whatever it costs." What's it going to cost? $100 a day? My accent's horrible, but in any case, they kept denying him. Nope, sorry, nope, you got to stay in Tavarua. Okay, well, we'll pay to stay in Tavarua for 2 days. Nope, you got to stay for a week. You can't just come for 2 days. They just shut him down left and right. So he was high anxiety because he was hell-bent on surfing Cloudbreak. So the first morning we were at Seashell Cove, we booked the boat out to Namotu because we knew the swell was pumping. We threw all our stuff in. It was about a 45-minute ride from the Coral Coast to those spots. And if you recall, we told the boat driver, we said, "Hey, can we just, do a flyby of Cloudbreak just to have a look at it?" And do you remember what happened there?
Yeah, so as I said, it was pumping no one out, and Kingy was just in awe of the place, going, "Oh man, I want to surf that." So
describe the waves.
Just, I don't know, 8 to 10 foot, reeling down the reef, just barreling, spitting, left hand, perfect Cloudbreak, basically.
I remember.
Wasn't it overcast though?
No, it was partly cloudy, but I just remember it being heaving ledges, probably in that 12-foot range, where it starts to hit ledge and starts to look like Chopu. If you've ever seen Cloudbreak, when it's below that size, it's like a peeling barrel. But when it hits 10-foot, 10, 12-foot faces, it starts to break on this section of the reef they call ledge, and it literally starts to get square, and that's what it looked like.
Yeah, and so we didn't realize, but Kingy's slowly putting on his swim fans, looking, pointing.
Now, meanwhile, there's a Tavarua boat with about 8 guys, none of them who had surfboards, and they were all just looking at it. And they were, 200 yards away from us just watching it. And the word was there was a group of volleyball players staying on Tavarua that week. They weren't surfers.
Yeah.
That was the rumor anyway. So continue. So he's pulling his fins on.
Yes, and all of a sudden he jumps off and just paddles straight for Cloudbreak. And I don't know, you've got a better memory than me, but we're just like, "Kingy, what are you doing?" And he's just motoring towards Cloudbreak. And I don't know what happened then.
Well, our boat driver was not happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because our boat driver was in charge of, getting us to Namotu, and here's Kingy going rogue and jumping off the boat. And this boat driver knows I'm going to get in trouble with the Tavarua folks, because again, I mentioned there's tribal culture there. Yeah. And Tavarua has their tribe that controls those waters, and this guy's coming from Seashell Cove. He's a Fijian gentleman that, he's driving the boat for a living. That's his job, and he's trying to control the situation. We're screaming at Kingy, "Dude, get back in the boat." Out of nowhere, this skiff from Tavarua motors in front of us and gets right in front of Kingy and cuts him off. And the guy's I think maybe this is wrong, but it seems to me like he had a bat in his hand. Like he was ready for a confrontation if need be.
A big stick that they used.
Maybe probably an oar. It was probably an oar.
Yeah.
So he told Kingy, you got to go back. You can't surf here. And there's no one out. It was absolutely not a single person in the lineup, but he would not let Kingy surf Tavarua. So Kingy, with much reluctance, turned tail, came back to our boat. And our boat driver was pissed. He was not a happy guy. And we were just like, I'm sorry. We didn't know he was going to do that. And so we motored on over to Namotu, and we ended up having a really good session, but there was a raging current and bad sea lice, I remember. We were getting nailed by sea lice. But it was like 6 to 8 foot faces, solid, real clean. But just tons of current. Namotu's like that, depending on the tide. You got to be in a mid tide because extreme high, extreme low. There's heavy current.
Swimming pools that day?
We did. We had Tyson Williams was the other guy that was with us. Now that totally popped into my head. Rest in peace, Tyson Williams. He was on that whole trip with us. I couldn't believe I couldn't remember that one at the beginning, but. In any case, so we went over to swimming pools and we caught some waves, really fun, like chest, shoulder high waves over there. And, then we went back to Seashell Cove. I don't think we ever went back out because this was at the end of the trip. Really, the cornerstone of the trip was that week on Kadavu, and we had the bookends of Suva at the beginning and
you know what we didn't talk about was the dorso ear.
I mentioned that. It wasn't his ear.
Well, you did mention it?
I didn't. No, I was going to mention that.
Okay.
So
while we were there, Paul Dawson, the photographer guy.
This is on
Kadavu.
What was
it if it wasn't his ear?
He tweaked his neck.
Oh, he tweaked his neck and he was in so much pain. He didn't know what to do, and was it the local village? People said, you got to try this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, what was that thing?
So there were these, I don't know what they were. They were these little pieces of paper or wood or something. Yeah. And they would put them on his neck and light them on fire. And they would burn down, and when they got close to the skin, they would put them out. And he put 5 of them on his neck.
So we're burning these paper things on his neck.
Just total voodoo type medicine. And he claimed that it helped his neck. He claimed he felt much better after that. So memorable trip, our first trip to Fiji. And that love affair with that country for us has continued on. Let's jump into one more trip, shall we?
Sure. Which one?
Okay. So I had a personal trip I'll get to in another show, but let's talk about our first. This one's going to be a long. Maybe not. The Mentawais trip.
Oh. One of
our
my
Mentawais
favorite
trip.
Of all time.
So that was
It literally is a bucket list. I mean, I got a lot of bucket list trips, but to do a boat trip in Indonesia, you have to do it someday before you die. It's one of the best experiences. I don't know, best trips that, as far as living on a boat and getting off the boat and surfing and coming in and having someone cook for you and boating to all the different islands and oh, what an experience. I don't know, was that one of your most favorite?
One of my most memorable trips. So this trip, the Mentawais trip, took a bit of doing to set it up. As I recall, I think you and I set up the boat. It was an Australian captain. It was a catamaran, and we had to basically fax back and forth and phone calls. That's how we organized it. It was, I believe, through Surf Travel Company. Not sure.
Yeah.
Which was an Australian surf travel provider back in those days.
And we had quite a crew.
So we had a crew, and it was a challenge to get everyone to pay for the trip, because you have to book this thing and get everyone to pay to secure it. So our crew consisted of who?
We had Guilherme from Brazil and Eppo and Bullet from Australia, Lanson from Hawaii, and then we had Tom Boyle, videographer, and Russell Hoover as the photographer. Who am I missing?
Yeah, that covers it.
was it?
That was it.
Yeah. So, you know, organizing all these guys months in advance to pay and to come from Brazil and come from Australia and come from Hawaii and California, you know, yeah, it was quite a mission to, you know, get everyone's schedules lined up. But we pulled it off. I feel like I'm missing someone. No?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. So,
Yeah.
in any case, from our perspective, we flew to Singapore. We had like a one-night layover in Singapore, which was interesting because in Singapore, there was like this world-renowned law that you couldn't chew gum
Cleanest city in the world or
in
something.
Singapore,
right? Yeah.
and if you spit,
no trash.
you'd get arrested.
something.
So that was, we were all like looking around going, I dare you to spit on the sidewalk, you know, if you get arrested. So it was the crew from Hawaii, Lanson and Tom Boyle, and then Russ Hoover, you and I came from California. So we spent the night in Singapore, then we flew to Padang. Actually, first it was Java to Jakarta, and then to Padang. We had like 3 flights, and then we stayed in a hotel in Padang, and then we went to the harbor and got on the boat finally. So it's a mission to get there. It's a few flights and taxi rides and all that kind of stuff. It's not a super quick hop, skip, and a jump. So we get there, we get to the boat. It's a really nice boat. It was a catamaran. It had all the modern conveniences of that time, which was, again, mid-90s. And at that point, the Mentawais, as they call it in Australia, was on the radar for sure of the surfing world. But it was just the beginning of it. It wasn't crazy crowded. I think, you know, the Indies Trader was sort of one of the first boats to really run that route. Martin Daly, who owned the Indies Trader and Indies Trader 2. He was sort of the boat captain to the stars. All the top pro surfers would go on Martin Daly's boats. Quicksilver sponsored his trips or boats or whatever. So we got there, and you and I were really concerned about seasickness, right?
Yeah, I get bad seasickness. So I had the bands, I had the ginger, I think the
Dramamine.
Yeah, everything popping it straight away.
Yeah, we were super worried we were going to get sick on this trip, violently ill. But fortunately, because this thing was a catamaran, it kind of cut through the chop. It wasn't bad. And all the motoring that we did, for the most part, or sailing, was at night when we slept. Which was a good thing because, you know, hopefully we'd surfed all day, been exhausted, and slept through it. We shared a cabin with Guilherme. That was interesting. You want to talk about that?
His nightmares?
Yeah. Night terrors
Night
were more
terrors.
like it.
Yeah, we'd sound asleep. I don't know, you'd probably have some better stories, but all I remember is him waking up screaming. Ah!
Yeah.
And we'd be like, what?
Yes, and we had a porthole. We were on the top bunk.
Right.
We had a porthole over our bed, and one night he just woke up in the middle of the night, screaming in Portuguese, trying to get up onto our bed and get through the porthole and get out of the boat. I guess maybe he thought we were
should
sinking.
ask him about that to this day.
Yeah, it's hilarious,
he
man.
still has terrors.
Man, night terrors, big time. Him and Chris Wan. That's for another story. I got another story about old Chris, our buddy. So anyway, so that trip, we scored epic waves literally every day, right?
Literally. Oh my gosh. That's why I guess it was most memorable. But so what are some memorable sessions? I remember the HTs.
HTs, also known as Lance's Rights. There's actually a land camp there now, which is a bummer, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But back then, we motored in. We had surfed Lance's Lefts the day before, or that morning, and then we motored in the afternoon around the point to Lance's Rights. And we pull up, and it was like 6 to 8, maybe a 10-foot set, faces I'm talking about, groomed offshore perfection, turquoise water, and no one out. And we pull up, and we just jump in the water as quick as we could. And Guilherme, I remember he just got caned. He took off really deep on a super big one, just too deep, and
almost
just got
ripped his nipple off.
That was a different wave.
Oh,
that
it
was when he
was?
rode too far inside and hit the inside reef. But this big one just caned the daylights out of him. So we had it to ourselves that night, and then the next morning, I believe, the Indies Trader with Martin Daly and crew pulls in, and it's got like, I want to say it was like Pat O'Connell, Shane Dorian, maybe Slater was on that boat. Maybe
know.
Rob Machado, Taylor Knox, some of those guys, you know, the momentum generation dudes. I can't remember specifically which guys, but in any case, it was just us and them sharing waves the whole next day, and no other boats in sight. So that, to me, that was the most memorable session of the trip. We had others, though, and most of the sessions, there was maybe one other boat or just us. And the way it used to work is the boats would pull up and they'd sort of try to stagger them. The captains would keep in touch with each other and say, hey, man, I'm pulling into this spot. Maybe come in like 2 hours and our crew will be getting out.
They still do that?
I don't know, because there's so many more boats and land camps now at almost all those spots. So it's a totally different vibe. But, yeah, we ate well. I remember Lanson got seasick at some point because we had a bit of a rough crossing after one session. And I remember him yakking over the side of the boat. But they would pull up, like, tuna.
Oh, yeah. We
off
have
the back.
literally the freshest tuna.
Like sashimi, which I don't eat, so I just watched
straight out of the water.
Yeah, they would. Literally, the guy was the deckhands would pull it up and like slice the thing open like right on the spot, man, and just be eating sashimi.
Awesome.
We watched movies at night. We played cards and warm water,
laid
sunshine.
on the hammock on the front of the
Yeah.
boat. I remember that.
Yeah, just a magical trip that we'd love to revisit at some point in the future. So we haven't been back since then. But we ended up getting a great article in, I believe it was in Riptide. And Tom Boyle included some of the footage in one of his videos. Not sure which one. But yeah, miraculous luck for us getting good surf through that whole trip. I think we went in July, which is like prime season for that part of the world. So magic trip, Mentawai, as Vicki mentioned at the beginning, on the bucket list. If you've never been, that's a place you want to visit. It's really a playground for wave riders. So yeah, so that covers us for that trip, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's we're gonna wrap this one up. That's 2 trips down. We'll talk about some more in a future episode, guys and girls. Thank you for watching the Real Deal Show. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. I always say that. Give us the thumbs up if you like the show. Put some comments in or additions down below. If you listened on the audio podcast, thank you for that. And we will see you next time on a Real Deal Show, and we'll see you in the surf.
See ya.